When the Galactic Concord sent a message to Earth, it was not what the world had expected. Most humans thought there would be peace talks, long debates, or perhaps a few quiet threats. But the message was short and cold. Submit peacefully, or face what they called a brief and educational conflict. The words sounded polite, but everyone knew what they really meant. The Jarkai were behind the challenge, a powerful alien species known across the stars for their love of war and their tradition of solving disputes through ritual combat. It was a test, one they had never lost. The rules were simple. Earth must choose one human to represent the planet. In return, the aliens would send 100 of their best warriors, selected from 10 different species, each known for a different kind of power. The aliens believed humans had no chance. Most of the galaxy believed the same. Humanity was new to the interstellar scene, still learning to fly beyond its own solar system. The Concord thought the humans would either surrender quietly or send someone brave enough to lose with dignity. Instead, Earth surprised them. The human governments chose not a soldier or a general, but a man named Captain Elias Monroe. He was calm, quiet, and older than the other candidates. Once a strategist for Earth's defense forces, he had retired years ago after serving in special missions no one was allowed to talk about. He wasn't the strongest, and he didn't look like a warrior, but those who knew him said he was the kind of man who saw things before they happened. He didn't speak much when he was chosen. He simply nodded, packed a small bag, and left for the arena moon. The place selected for the battle was a lifeless rocky moon orbiting a neutral planet. Its gravity was set to standard levels, and the arena itself was a wide, open field surrounded by tall spires made of stone and metal. No weapons from outside were allowed. Everything had to be built, found, or planned on the moon itself. A crowd of millions from across the galaxy watched from orbit and through live transmissions. They had come to see the humans fall. The alien warriors arrived with confidence. Tall, fast, and covered in armor, they stood like giants beside each other. Some had claws, others used advanced weapons provided by their own cultures, while a few relied on pure physical strength. They laughed when they heard Earth was sending only one man. They even offered to give him time to change his mind. But Captain Elias Monroe didn't change anything. He stepped into the arena without fear, wearing a simple suit designed for mobility and function. There were no weapons in his hands, no armor covering his chest, just a small device on his wrist that blinked with soft blue light. The alien spectators whispered among themselves, "Who was this human? Why didn't he look worried? Did Earth not take the challenge seriously?" But Monroe wasn't here to impress anyone. He had spent his whole life solving impossible problems, and now he was looking at the biggest one yet, one man against 100. Still, he didn't focus on the odds. He focused on the arena, scanning every corner, every crack, every sensor hidden in the walls. He was thinking, not about the fight, but about the system behind it. The battle hadn't started yet, but something was already moving in the background, quiet, unseen, and carefully planned. The aliens thought they had everything under control. They didn't realize the most dangerous thing about humans wasn't their strength. It was their ability to think differently. And Elias Monroe was already 3 steps ahead. Captain Elias Monroe stood alone on the cold metal platform, surrounded by walls of alien stone and technology, with the sound of thousands of voices echoing through the arena. He wore no armor, carried no visible weapon, and made no dramatic entrance. The alien spectators, packed into towering observation towers and tuning in from across the galaxy, shouted in over 30 languages, some curious, many mocking. From their point of view, this was not a battle, but a performance, and the human was only a side character in a script already written. The Jarkai commander, a towering figure covered in silver armor etched with ancient runes, stepped forward with loud, practiced words, declaring that this was Earth's final moment of freedom. He raised his spear in the air, his voice sharp and deep, a voice that had ended worlds before. But Elias didn't respond. He stood calmly, a light smile on his face, not out of arrogance, but because he had already made peace with the path ahead. He had spent the hours before the match not pacing nervously or sharpening blades, but walking the arena slowly, hands behind his back, eyes tracing the details of the floor, the walls, the surrounding machinery. While the alien champions trained and roared to impress their fans, Elias observed the patterns in the power lines, the way the gravity field hummed when no one was looking, and the way the light sensors adjusted during the artificial dusk. The alien warriors, each one proud and highly trained, began forming a large circle around him, their armor gleaming under the sky dome. They represented 10 species, each with its own strength, speed, flight, strength, stealth, and technology beyond what Earth had yet built. Some had tails like whips, others had arms like machines, and one even floated without touching the ground. To the spectators, this moment was simple: one human against 100 elite fighters. But Elias knew something they didn't. He hadn't come to meet them in direct combat. That was their way, not his. He had studied not just their forms, but their habits, the rules they followed, and the assumptions they never questioned. The countdown began, a slow pulse from the arena's core. Lights blinked around the ring. The warriors tensed, ready to rush forward the moment the signal was given. But Elias didn't move, not an inch. As the last tone rang out, the aliens surged forward, fast and furious, moving like a storm of claws, blades, and strength. They expected fear, retreat, or a brave stand that would be over in seconds. What they didn't expect was for the arena itself to turn against them. The moment they stepped forward, something shifted beneath their feet. A section of the floor softened like sand, swallowing the front line. Another group leapt, only to be pulled sideways as gravity twisted briefly in one direction, then another. High above, parts of the sky dome flickered and flashed, blinding a few just long enough to make them collide. Elias, still in the center, moved carefully but without panic, stepping between traps that no one else saw because he had placed them there himself. Using only the arena's own systems that were meant to be neutral, he had reprogrammed. Subtle changes, slight gravity shifts, magnetic loops, timed sound pulses, and environmental cues. All quiet, all legal, all unnoticed. The aliens had come for a test of strength. Elias had come with a plan. This was not just a battle. This was a lesson. And the galaxy was about to learn what it really meant to face a human who refused to play by their rules. The moment the countdown reached 0, the alien champions surged forward like a crashing wave, a storm of motion, muscle, and confidence. But before their first footfalls even fully landed, the arena itself responded. Not with sound or light at first, but with quiet resistance. The floor shifted under the feet of the front line, softening into a semi-liquid surface that pulled at their boots and made balance impossible. Some stumbled, others tried to leap forward, but just as they lifted off the ground, the gravity snapped sideways for a fraction of a second, sending them spinning into each other. Lights across the dome above flickered in a rhythm that seemed random, but wasn't. Elias had programmed it to interfere with the vision sensors used by 2 of the 10 alien species, causing disorientation without a single touch. From his quiet position near the arena's center, Captain Elias Monroe watched, not with surprise, but with the calm focus of someone who had seen this play out already in his mind, over and over again. Hours before the match, when he had walked the arena like a curious visitor, he had been more than just an observer. Using a hidden neural uplink embedded in the side of his neck, disguised beneath a standard health monitor, he had quietly connected to the arena's control systems, built to be fair, balanced, and neutral, but not built to withstand the creativity of a human strategist. He didn't need to bring weapons. The arena was his weapon. He had spent the time learning its language, where the gravity anchors were, how the light panels were timed, where maintenance drones parked between matches. Then he rewrote the rules, not to break them, but to bend them around the very idea of combat. As the warriors came closer, some met invisible walls of magnetic force that lifted them off their feet and held them gently, like floating in a glass bubble. These weren't traps designed to injure. They were designed to disable, to confuse, to delay. The kind of traps that turned aggression into disadvantage. One champion, tall and armored in heavy bronze plating, tried to leap forward with a sonic blade. But the moment his foot touched a faintly glowing tile, a feedback pulse sent his suit into a shutdown cycle, leaving him frozen in place like a statue. Another warrior, quick and covered in shimmering scales, attempted to flank Elias, only to find that the path she'd chosen was now a loop of ever-shifting gravity wells that forced her to walk in circles until she collapsed from dizziness. Elias didn't attack anyone directly. He didn't need to. He simply moved like a shadow through the chaos, calm and silent, taking slow, measured steps through a battlefield that responded to his thoughts. Every step he took was a signal to the arena's systems, which obeyed him like an orchestra following its conductor. Above, the crowd that had once cheered and laughed now fell into a stunned silence, unable to understand what they were seeing. This was not war the way they knew it. There was no brutal force, no clash of fists or blades, only one human walking smoothly through 100 alien elites who had trained their whole lives for direct combat. And yet, one by one, they fell, not from pain or wounds, but from the realization that their strength meant nothing in a fight where the ground, the air, even the light was against them. The arena had awakened, but not on its own. It had awakened for Elias Monroe, because he had turned it into something no one had expected. A puzzle only a human could solve, and a trap only he could control. In just under 2 minutes, more than half of the alien champions had been removed from the match, not by force, but by the clever use of their own expectations. Captain Elias Monroe hadn't touched a single one with violence, yet they lay scattered across the arena, not hurt, only defeated by confusion, missteps, and an environment they could no longer trust. Some were caught in zero-gravity traps, others encased gently in holding fields that neutralized their weapons, and a few were so turned around by gravity shifts and flashing light patterns that they had chosen to stay down rather than risk further humiliation. The entire arena had become a living maze, and Monroe moved through it with the calm ease of someone walking through his own memories. The alien crowd had fallen nearly silent now, the earlier cheers and laughter replaced by stunned silence and nervous whispers. This was not what they had expected. The Jarkai commander, watching from the platform just beyond the battle zone, clenched his fists and growled low, his pride burning hotter with each passing second. The challenge was supposed to be a demonstration of alien dominance, a swift reminder to Earth of its low place in the galaxy. But now it was turning into something else, something the Jarkai could not explain or control. In a final act of anger and desperation, the commander leapt into the arena himself, breaking protocol but fueled by the fear of losing face in front of the entire galactic concord. He drew a plasma blade that hummed with light and fury, his armor glowing red with battle mode energy. He roared a challenge that echoed through the open sky dome and charged at Elias with a speed and force few could match. Yet Elias did not step back. He watched calmly, eyes focused, body still, as if he had already seen this moment 100 times. When the Jarkai reached him, blade raised for a devastating strike, Elias raised his right hand just slightly, and that was all it took. A hidden mechanism inside his sleeve activated, a sleek tactical exosleeve built for fast defense, not combat. It extended in less than a second, catching the commander's arm mid-swing and sending a pulse through the weapon's core. The plasma blade sparked, flickered, and died in an instant. With no time to recover, the commander stumbled, and Elias shifted his stance smoothly, stepping aside and letting the alien's momentum carry him forward. With a light movement of the exosleeve, Elias tapped the back of the commander's armor, sending a feedback jolt through its system. The great HFY warrior collapsed to the ground, his weapon dead, his systems frozen, his pride shattered. For a long moment, no one moved. The crowd stared, breath held, as their champion, once so proud and feared, lay flat on the arena floor, looking up at the stars, as if trying to understand how it had all gone so wrong. Elias stood over him, not with anger or mockery, but with quiet confidence. He had won, not by overpowering his enemies, but by understanding them, outthinking them, and refusing to fight on their terms. That was the turning point, not just in the match, but in the way the galaxy saw humans. A single man had stood against 100, and he had not only survived, he had outmatched them all with nothing but preparation, patience, and the kind of thinking no one else had expected. The silence of the arena was not just shock, it was the sound of an entire galaxy reconsidering everything it thought it knew about Earth. As the final alien warrior stepped back and lowered his weapon, the tension in the arena shifted from intensity to stunned silence, like the moment before a storm finally passes. Captain Elias Monroe did not raise his arms in triumph, nor did he cheer or celebrate. Instead, he lifted one hand slowly, not to boast, but as a quiet sign of respect to every challenger who had faced him. He walked forward, steady and calm, his boots gently tapping against the now still floor, heading toward the platform where the alien envoys stood in disbelief. Their expressions were a mix of confusion, frustration, and something deeper, something like respect, though none of them were ready to admit it yet. Elias stopped before them, meeting each of their gazes one by one. In a voice clear and firm, he made it known that Earth had never wanted war. Humanity had not come to threaten, conquer, or challenge the ways of others. But if pushed into a corner, if tested like this, they would never fight on anyone else's terms. Humans would not rely on brute strength or advanced weapons alone. Instead, they would fight like only humans could, with creativity, with problem solving, with the ability to adapt to anything, and most of all, with the courage to turn even the rules of the game into something new. The envoys had no answer. They simply watched, still trying to understand how a single human had turned a hopeless challenge into a message that would echo far beyond the arena. Moments later, the crowd, which had once laughed at the idea of a human challenger, now stood in complete silence. And slowly, one by one, across the viewing towers and across the galaxy's many transmission lines, the story began to spread. Footage of the battle, the clever traps, the shifting arena, and the calm figure at its center traveled faster than light, reaching every major system within hours. On planets where humans were still considered unimportant or unready, leaders re-watched the footage with widened eyes. On stations where humans were mocked, the laughter stopped. Because what the galaxy saw was not just one man winning a battle, it was a new truth forming. Humanity was no longer seen as weak or behind. They were not simply new to space, they were different. And that difference was what made them dangerous in a way no one had planned for. They were unpredictable, able to do the impossible, not through strength, but through thinking differently. They were intelligent, not just in science, but in reading situations, in staying calm under pressure, and in finding the hidden path no one else saw. And above all, they were unbreakable. Not because they couldn't fall, but because they always found a way to rise again. On Earth, news of the victory reached every corner, sparking pride and a new kind of unity. In orbiting stations and on distant colonies, people who had once felt uncertain now stood a little taller. They had seen what one of their own could do against the impossible. And in the galactic concord, a quiet but powerful shift began. From that day forward, no species underestimated humans again. Meetings with Earth were taken more seriously. Offers of alliance came more often, and those who once planned to challenge Earth paused, wondering what might happen if they pushed too far, because the galaxy had seen something it hadn't expected. Not a warrior with power, but a mind with purpose. And in the quiet after the battle, the name Elias Monroe became more than just a name. It became a symbol. A single human had faced 100 aliens, and in minutes changed the way the galaxy saw Earth forever.